Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Sweeney, and this is my oral presentation on the outline for my capstone project. To start off, we are going to discuss the problem that my capstone is aiming to address. In the United States, there is a rampant mistrust for medicine and medical practices as a whole when compared with our European neighbors. This not only leads to crises in public health, but it serves to impact and slow the progression of clinical research, as individuals who mistrust medicine are less likely to participate or engage in clinical research. This mistrust also leads to more prolonged and therefore more expensive clinical trials, specifically when compared with the costs associated with conducting clinical trials in most European nations. The lack of willingness among the US population to participate in clinical trials can lead to insufficient data for life-changing treatment or underrepresentation of certain demographics within a study, which also prevents advancements in our medical treatment. So we're just going to discuss the aims of my project. Number one is to conduct a survey reaching varying demographics in the US to help identify altruism of groups compared with willingness to participate in clinical trials. I have this concern that perhaps the reason that participation in clinical research is so much more scarce in the US and so much more harder to achieve those participation goals, it could in part be due to a lack of altruism among specific demographics within the US. And so the survey that I'm doing as part of my capstone would delve into whether or not there's a link between willingness to participate in clinical research and the level of altruism that individuals from a specific group have. Aim number two is determine if there is a link between willingness to participate in clinical research and a group's altruism. And aim number three is to examine results of the survey and identify means by which participation can be improved among various demographics. So as far as the approach goes, the general overview is to first obtain IRB approval to conduct my survey. Once that is complete, the next step will be to disperse surveys throughout major cities within the US at accessible locations where people from varying demographics, backgrounds, and ethnicities might be present. The survey will then identify the demographics of the people participating in the survey, and it will utilize a self-reporting altruism survey to get the altruism scores for individuals participating in the survey. Then the next step will be to analyze the results and then to share and disperse the results. So the first step will be IRB approval. This is because my capstone project involves community participation through the form of a survey. So there will need to be some form of consent within the survey itself. And it will likely be an expedited review given that there is minimal chances of harm towards the human subject. As far as locations that these surveys are going to be distributed, targeted 6 major cities, including New York City, Boston, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Houston, and Miami. In determining these locations, I thought it best to select these 6 cities, given that they represent, between the 3 of them, a diverse array of backgrounds, including, ethnicities, religious affiliations, political affiliations. And, we have cities of large populations with people from varying backgrounds. The locations in these cities in which the surveys will be distributed, I targeted bus stops, subways, and grocery stores because public transportation is a place for people with all sorts of backgrounds and beliefs, congregate that utilize these systems. And the grocery store because, people from all sorts of backgrounds still have to buy groceries. So these are locations in which you wouldn't favor people of educational, religious, ethnic, or social backgrounds. They're going to use all of these sites. As far as the approach for the distribution of the surveys, first distribute flyers to the aforementioned locations across the aforementioned cities. These flyers will have a QR code that takes the participant to a Google form in which they will first sort of consent to the survey, and then there will follow 5 initial questions regarding the just identifying questions including ethnicity, sex, religion, political affiliation, and age range of the participant. This will be followed by 20 questions using the self-reporting altruism scale developed by Rush in 1981. All the questions are contained within that survey. And then there will be 2 following questions, one that gauges with radio buttons on a scale of 1 to 5, an individual's trust of medicine, and then their willingness to participate in clinical trials. 1 being, least likely or most mistrustful, and 5 being most trusting or most likely to participate in clinical trials. And then the flyer will also contain information about compensation. It'll be advertised that 1 participant will be selected from the pool of participants to win a $75 Amazon gift card, and participants will be forced to provide an email if they wish to be compensated or be entered into the drawing for compensation for this survey. And as far as analysis and reporting goes, analysis will be performed 6 weeks after data collection begins. So it begins, and then the survey will close 6 weeks after, and the process of data collection or the process of data analysis will begin. Results will then be shared primarily with the stakeholders who help develop the topic, and over the summer help give me ideas and information and insight into the field. And then my hope is that the information will also be presented at the Society for Clinical Research sites, so that professionals everywhere can sort of leverage the information in a way that encourages more diverse participation in clinical trials, and maybe helps get at the root of if there is a link between altruism and a willingness to participate in clinical trials. They cannot leverage that in a way to help address that issue. As far as implications and future direction, the implication is that it helps identify cultural weak points. If there is a lack of altruism among specific cultures, this is a great way to help identify it and move towards getting a solution. And it will provide educators and researchers with data for encouraging better representation and sort of getting at the heart of the willingness to participate in clinical trials. As far as future directions for my capstone project, I'm hoping that it opens a gap, it opens a bridge for spanning that gap of these cultural weak points. If there is an issue of altruism among a specific demographic or specific population in a given location, that this is means for spanning that gap and providing future research, that the building blocks for future research can be based to addressing this issue. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for sort of sociological discovery here. Gearing how do we gear future generations towards altruism? I think it's a great way for educators, public figures, and researchers to have a launching pad for which they can begin to explore this topic. So as far as my conclusion, we're just going to revisit the aims of my project. And aim number 1 is to conduct a survey reaching varying demographics in the U.S. to identify altruism of groups compared with their willingness to participate in clinical trials. This is achieved by, hopefully by the distribution of the surveys throughout the given locations that I had discussed previously. Aim number 2 is to determine if there is a link between willingness to participate in clinical research and a group's altruism. So, given that the data is collected, we can then analyze and see if this link actually exists. And then number 3 is to examine the results of a survey and identify means by which participations can be improved among various demographics. So the hope here is that the data that is collected through this survey is one that can be leveraged to help research determine how they can improve altruism in a population, or at least rule it out as not one of the weak points in why participation in the United States is so difficult to achieve. Thank you. That is the end of my presentation. I look forward to hearing your thoughts, and here are the relevant references utilized throughout my presentation. Thank you very much.